Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Play Aurora 4X C#. Let me get my timer started. So last time we got our laser turrets designed. I haven't actually slapped them onto the design yet, so the ship still needs to be finalized. I mean, it still anyway has the next iteration of beam fire controls that need to be worked out anyway, so yeah, doesn't really matter. But let's go ahead and get the turrets on. How many can I fit on before the game complains about my current number of power plants? 27! Oh boy! Of course, this now means this is a one big ship, and I do not want a 40,000 ton heavy cruiser. You might be a heavy cruiser, but that's just so that I could have a different designation from the light cruisers. Makes life a bit easier when it comes to the whole management aspect. I think we're going to go with 16. Twin turret, or, twin gun turrets. So 32 guns total. This, of course, means that I can take off some power plants. Maybe even use slightly smaller power plants. Not quite. How can I get the math to work out in favor while staying preferably under 32,000? Or excuse me, under 30,000. Is there any way we can do that? Let's see. Well, so I'm pretty sure, well, actually I say I'm pretty sure. I know I beat them in ECM and ECCM. So we could probably skimp on on the actual beam fire control that we use. And you don't really need all these active sensors, because I don't think the tracking bonus versus missiles actually uses your specific active sensors. And, this is 150 tons of active sensors that aren't really needed. Could. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's why I did that. Can I design a new power plant? I'm pretty sure the answer is no. Yes, because we're still using the solid core. We're still researching the gas core. How much power do I need? 216. How big would I need to design this thing to provide 216? 338. Which is, I'm pretty sure in terms of total size, technically less than the setup of 2 R82s and 1 R63. Although I can't actually get exactly 216, it's either slightly under or slightly over, which is a difference of 13 tons. But that also begs the question, do I want to have one reactor that if it gets knocked out, all of our weapons are down? Or do I want to go with a halvesies setup, where it's 2 reactors that are half the power of the 216 that we need? So that if one reactor gets destroyed, we can still technically fire half our weapons. Which would be a 108. Can I even do a 108? I can do exactly a 108. That then ends up being 416 tons on a reactor alone. But, again, Also, God, that is an ancient frickin' power plant. Go and obsolete that thing so it's not cluttering my screen anymore. Yeah, we're gonna do that, I think. Unless we're very close to the gas core, which I don't think we are. No. That is September of, what is that, like 4 or 5 years from now? No. It's like 6 years from now. Yeah, like 5, 6 years from now, somewhere in that sort of time frame. That is a ways out there. And that's with our best man on the job. 25 labs and a 20% bonus. Yeah. So we're going to go with the need a name that I can pronounce. The Park Aero engines. Two of those, that gets us up to 535 tons. Still want you to be pretty quick, so you're at 7,100, which is pretty decent. Oh yes, the Admiral Graf Spee here. Technically, he needs to swap out the turrets it was theoretically going to use previously. And you get up to 5 turrets now. Still a bit big, though. Well, you're not finalized yet anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. Is there? How can I possibly shave off 535 tons? Because I really don't want you to be over 30. I legitimately do not think that's quite possible. $212 days of fuel. Which is realistically more than you'll probably ever use in the grand scheme of things. It really is. You're probably never going to use that much during a single operation. And if I have a long operation, I'll design tankers. But I really don't expect us to need that while this campaign is going. If I'm being completely honest, I really do not think this campaign will still be going at a point in time where that is in any way a relevant requirement. So let's go ahead and get all of that stuff designed, because we got quite a few prototypes that we're going to need to research before we can actually get the tech out there, or the new ships. Which is one of the reasons why I don't expect to have the ships being built before June. We're going to be at least a couple more years, because we were not prepared for needing to deal with a missile-equipped enemy. But we will now be better prepared in the future, should that be necessary. Because we'll at least have, designs that we can work off of, which is the most important bit. Okay, we can finally start stockpiling the galsite that we are acquiring again. We don't need it. For anything that we are currently building. Which is good, because we're going to need to stockpile as much of that as possible, because engines are expensive as hell. Okay, that I believe is the last of the ground units. All done. So. Did I forget a regimental command? No, I didn't. Okay. I was about to say, like, did I forget to do a regimental command? Because I feel like I forgot to do a regimental command. Artillery, engineer, air defense, anti-tank. There's your mortar. You technically have the space for almost another regiment. Almost, not quite. See, so I'm going to be honest. When it comes to the engineering companies, I assume that they don't actually need to be on the front or, under somebody. I assume they can be at the top and work. I don't know if that's accurate, but I assume they can be at the top and work. So I may want to move them to the top. Because, I mean, they clearly seem to be fortifying everybody. The regimental command here is sitting at 6 fortification for the HQ and the supply, or for the heavy infantry supply, and, 3 for the supply vehicle. Division command itself is sitting at 2. I don't know if there's maybe diminishing returns the further away something is in the command hierarchy compared to an engineering company. I don't know the ins and outs of this game necessarily, especially when it comes to the ground stuff, because I haven't really used it all that much. But if these guys don't need to be there, that is like 1,700 size that I can shave off of each of these regimental commands, and slightly decrease further the penalty they take for being over their command capacity. Now, I could put them at the brigade level, which might work. It still allows them to be relatively close to the regiments, or, the regimental elements that they work with. And they're at least not being counted size-wise under a regimental command. So they don't affect them. They instead only affect the command capability of the brigade. Now, because I have the spare left over, I got like 13,000 tons left over there. It's a question of, do I want to potentially design a static element to put under each battalion? And if so, what? I believe light anti-aircraft only works for stuff that you have an immediate relation to. I think. Medium AA, I believe, basically works for anything that is like next to you. And heavy AA, I think, works throughout the entire hierarchy. But I think you prioritize stuff that is closer to you in the hierarchy. I think. Again, don't quote me on any of this stuff when it comes to ground, because I'm just kind of guessing for a good portion of it. Now, when it comes to designing a new STO, I think we will end up switching to the lasers. Let's see. So I'm trying to think. So if we go with the lasers, they significantly improve our range. Well, that's not strictly true. They improve our range, yes. It's not actually significant. In fact, it actually stays the same, I think. Yeah, excuse me. So we were using the 25s. So it's a 110,000 increase in range using the current versions and a significantly faster rate of fire. But of course, the reality is if I were to design a brand new 25 centimeter railgun to use on STOs, we could achieve basically the same range. Still not quite get the rate of fire, though. And, you know, it does beg the question. For an STO, is a quad turret a good idea? Because while it does make the unit a fair bit heavier, not even necessarily just a straight doubling of size. But I assume this is taking into account the fact that you're technically needing to put a reactor in it, which is a little bit weird because couldn't we technically just draw from the planet's power grid if we wanted to do that? I mean, sure, you might have a local reactor as like backup. And by might, I mean you will. But realistically, if we're being honest here, you would probably draw from the planet's power grid. initially. And if the enemy closes and manages to destroy the local power grid, then you have your own integrated reactor that you draw from. But that's just how I would probably design a system like this personally. I may be completely off in my assessment, but that's how I would personally design something like this. But let's go ahead and move on. Damn it, game, I'm trying to close that. Thank you. I kept clicking like right next to it. I don't know why. It's a little too quick on the draw there, trying to close it. But yeah, like I said, that's just how I would do it personally. Is that, you know, you'd have a local power, but then you would just draw from the planetary grid when the enemy's out at a distance. But I'm, of course, assuming that your planet has a robust enough infrastructure and power grid that you can actually draw from it instead of relying solely upon your own personal reactor for each of these STOs. Because maybe you don't. Maybe you don't have an adequate enough power supply. Okay. And our guys arrived at Epsilon Indy. Also, so when it comes to infrastructure, your guys can sort of poof it into existence. It's apparently about 10 million population. So we got a ways to go until that's a viable option. We have a ways to go. You don't have this right now. Whoops. Delete that. Edit demand. You need a deep space tracking station. Earth has a deep space tracking station. Or at least I'm pretty sure you don't got one right now. Earth might have been told to have 2 added to supply. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. If you end up getting 2, it's not that big of a deal. Earth can build them. Not too much of a problem. In fact, I'll go ahead and tell Earth to build 2 more. Because we're going to need them anyway. Even just for Epsilon Indy. And you need mines. Because you got Galsite that I need you to bring. So let's get this started. 100 mines. Earth says, I got 100 mines. Here you go. Enjoy. And that'll at least kickstart over there. And we got 25 labs free. Did I finish researching something and I missed it? Or did somebody die? Somebody died, didn't they? That's the most logical conclusion. Who was researching something that died? Or retired? Oh, of course, it was the guy who was researching our fire control speed improvement. Because of course he decides this is the perfect time to decide to leave. So that's going to push that out to December of about 2 years from now. We got a couple labs that we can still add, and that'll help a little bit. But yeah, you've got a ways to go. Oh, somebody retired again. Of course, it was the person researching the frickin' Gauss cannons. Thanks for that. And that leaves me with 3 free labs. Let's go ahead and get the new active sensors going, I guess. Actually, wait. Shoot. Are those actually the active sensors I wanted to use? Because I think I might have forgotten to redesign them after we researched some text. I don't recall. Let's check on that. If I tried to design a resolution 1, does it match what I see here? The answer to that would appear to be yes. Okay. Well, so long as it matches, then I guess it's fine. Okay. Yeah, I just couldn't recall if I had actually done that or not. I'm going to tell you to queue all those up because you might as well just do them all back to back. And that'll give you quite a bit of experience, and maybe you'll get some extra labs that you can use. That'd be a wonderful thing. Okay, and there's should be the last of the slipways that I want. Because I think 4 is fine. Now we just need the designs to get finalized for the ships. And then to build the ships. And then to add them to the fleet. And then send the fleet out. Again, we were unprepared for needing to deal with a missile-equipped enemy. Going forward, we will be much better equipped. Because we will have already begun. Or rather, we'd already have templates that I could build off of, and we can do refits, which takes significantly less time than building a ship from scratch. I realize that that should not come as a surprise, that refits are generally less time consuming than a new build. But yeah, we need to sort all that out first. And once that's sorted out, we'll be good to go for the future. We got 1 extra lab sitting around doing nothing, apparently. Which is weird, because I thought I told you to add new, but I guess it removes that every time you switch to a new tech in your queue. Which makes 0 sense to me, personally. But I guess it assigns it to the tech and not the researcher, and that's why it works the way it does. Okay, now to get our reactor and the engines. That is going to take a little bit till October, at least right now. And I think what's going to end up happening is that we are going to end up with a brand new fleet being built in the future. Because, yeah, you know, we got stuff to research. Or, excuse me, not stuff to research, but with Epsilon Indy being as far away as it is, it's not viable for us to actually, you know, need to keep our fleets in Earth orbit to reinforce them. So we're gonna have to have a second fleet once we get Epsilon Indy fully operational. Oh God, I need to get STOs over there as well, because until it's fully operational, there's no fleet in orbit to protect it when the raiders inevitably decide to stop on by. Yeah, good thing I remembered that. So, Earth, you have 2 STOs. Well, I need you to build 2 more. Those aren't going to be ready until August of 2180, or excuse me, 2158. I was about to say 85. Definitely not 85, but 58. Expeditionary Strike Group. I know I said that you would repair your armor on the TRS America, but yeah, no, that's going to have to wait a bit longer, because you got to do another trip back out to Epsilon Indy and then come back after you drop off the orbital defense teams that are going to be tasked with defending our brand new colony. You got to get there fast, because I really don't need to be losing Epsilon Indy, because it'll be a pain to recapture. And that's mostly just because it's so damn far away. It really is. And that's exactly why it's going to have a second, its own dedicated fleet. We're going to build a brand new Terran Republic. I don't know, I guess Western Fleet, we'll call it. I don't know. We've got the issue of it's space. There's technically no cardinal directions. No north, south, east, west in the traditional sense. But for the sake of simplicity, we are going to refer to Earth as the central point in the galaxy as far as we're concerned, because it's from our perspective. Epsilon Indy is out in the west, so it's going to have its own TRS, or excuse me, what is it called exactly? What's the naming convention? Terran Republic West Fleet. Though technically it should probably not be fleet, it should probably be command. Speaking of that, it's Terran Republic Central Command. We'll have a Terran Republic Western Command. I don't know if Geo Virginis is going to be considered far enough away to warrant creating an Eastern Command if we end up, actually using that location. And now to design the turrets to go for the Gauss cannons. What am I, 33,000? God, is Gauss really that much? God damn, Gauss is so much lighter than lasers. Holy crap. They're like a fourth the size, maybe a third. And they, of course, have the benefit of they don't need power. Yay! Now it's a question of, do I do twin, triple, or quad? I think generally most recommendations when it comes to Gauss PD is that quad ain't worth it. Because while each turret can target a missile independently, if you fire and one of the 4 shots, well, actually, that is not even one of 4 shots because we have, what is it, fire rate 5? So if one of the 20 rounds fired in a salvo from a single turret hit, the missile's destroyed if it has no armor. And I don't even think you can design missiles with armor in this version of the game. I think that was only a thing in the VB6 version of the game. I don't see an armor option here, so yeah, I don't think it's possible to add armor to a missile, technically speaking, anymore in C#. So missiles have a single hit point, period, as far as I know. So if one of 20 rounds from a quad Gauss cannon with rate of fire 5 hits, the missile's destroyed. The other 19, they do nothing. They basically poof out of existence, because as far as the game is concerned, they might as well have not been fired. So if I do single, each turret will fire 5 shots at a missile. Depending on the number of missiles incoming, they will either each select their own missile or they will overlap, and some missiles might get targeted by multiple turrets. In which case, we should just probably assume that each missile is going to get targeted by 2 turrets, because again, the plan is for our anti-missile missiles to deal with most of the stuff. Lasers will thin the herd, and then Gauss will deal with the stragglers that manage to make their way through. I should not have very many, if things go as planned, missiles to actually have the Gauss cannons fire at. So yeah, we're going to go with twin turrets again. And this is going to be Banda Precision Arms. And we'll prototype it just so I can see how it looks. And I'm going to do a copy class of the version that is, whoops, wrong thing. It's on the light cruiser, actually. Do a copy of the version that was the test version. And then actually put this okay, so you are, god damn, are you guys actually that much lighter? Like, holy crap. You are. What the hell did I design that? Oh, yes, it's also because of extra text. Yes, this was designed when our texts were not quite as great when it came to the whole research. Also, I think this might be a size. Yeah, this is also, I think, an HS5. And I don't think it's actually the version that I used in my test. I think I did use the HS 1.5s when I actually was doing my tests. This, I think, was the kind of, this is, I think, the kind of turret we'll use. But no, we don't need to do that because we can just slap a ludicrous amount of firepower. How do you feel about 40 twin-turreted, excuse me, 40 twin Gauss turrets firing 5 rounds each every 5 seconds. Not that the every 5 seconds matters, because they're only going to fire once, generally speaking. That would be 80 guns firing 5 rounds each. For a cool 400 rounds fired every time we engage. It's a good thing they don't need ammo, because we probably run out in seconds. But now the question is, I can actually slap more, because I still have about 6,000 tons with nothing better to do. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe maintenance. Because you're firing a ton, and there's a 2%, I believe it is, failure chance every time a weapon fires, period. So let's do a nice even 60 turrets. And let's slap some more maintenance supplies on here, because you might need them. There we go. Damn, that gave you what? Like an extra, yeah, that gave you like an extra year of maintenance life. Because it basically doubled your MSP. Almost. Not quite. I say almost. It's not even realistically almost. You go from basically 4,000 to, we'll say, 6,500. We're rounding using a ceiling formula and not a, a normal rounding formula. So it's always a round up, never round down, no matter what. So yeah, you go from about 4,000 to 65. So technically it's more of like a 50% increase, I guess. My math's correct on that, which I believe it is. Now, why do you have that? Yeah. Why do you have that active sensor? Oh, I know why. It's because this is the active sensor that is optimized for having the ability to detect missiles. It's the same one that we're using on the escort frigates. Okay. That's fine. Again, I don't believe for the bonus that we researched or are researching, max tracking time for bonus versus missile, or excuse me, versus missiles, I don't think cares whose sensor it is that is detecting the missile. Theoretically, the light cruiser, I don't think actually needs an active sensor, because the escort frigates would have an active sensor that is capable of detecting the missile at a longer range than our normal short range missiles or active sensors are. Because our normal active sensors are not intended for actually detecting missiles necessarily, or at least, not for engagement purposes. And technically, we pick them up anyway on our passives because missiles put out a lot of thermal energy. The game doesn't tell you this when you're designing the missile. Actually, does it? Well, yes, it tells you engine power. If we pull up our AIM 43s here, we have an engine power of 25. We'll round up and say 26. So, and I don't know if I don't think that's additive. If you fire a large salvo, I don't believe it basically adds up this engine power. So technically, I guess the AIM-43s are pretty good at being able to not be detected by their target. Yeah, I'm honestly not quite sure how the math works out. Theoretically, this missile, when it comes to our RIM 46 or 846s, they're at 48.38. Let's just say 48. This is million kilometers versus a 100 thermal signature. So unless these things are, it adds up the total engine power of the missiles in a salvo, I'm surprised that we were detecting those enemy missiles on passives, but we were. So, yeah, that's a thing. And yeah, like I said, I don't know why we were picking them up. I fully feel like we probably shouldn't have been. Okay, yeah, these are, whoops. Thermals. Obsolete those. Why do I have two of these? I don't know why. Figure out which one we want to use and stick with it. Because there's literally no difference between them. We'll take the Hankel. But yeah, I don't know why we had two of those. I must have designed one, not realizing we had already designed one, I guess. That'd be my guess. I don't know if that's true, though. Probably true, though. Oh, yes. And again, as I went over last time at the start, yeah, our new design option of using two of these engines that are half the speed of the single that we could design, yeah, that's resulting in a recon fighter that is 100 tons lighter and jumps up to about 17,500 kilometers a second, as opposed to a little over 13,000. And has almost twice the days at full power. And if I were to, get it back up to 400 tons, just slapping a bunch of fuel storage on it, it would have more than enough. Do I need it? Hell no. There's absolutely zero reason for me to put that much frickin' fuel in a passive sensor, effectively drone, realistically. We call it a fighter. We could call it a recon craft, but I feel like recon craft is a little too big for what the thing actually is. That's the only reason why we're not referring to it as that. But yeah, so we've got a... God damn, that time went by so quickly. I only got 10 minutes left of my timer. I'm frankly surprised it went by that quickly. It doesn't feel like it should have. But yes, so the plan is to finish up all this research, which I think is mostly done. Yeah, the big thing is waiting for that fire control speed. God, I think we're gonna say screw it and say we'll do that with the refit. We'll implement the actually good fire control in the refit, because otherwise we are going to be waiting way, way too long. Because that's another year. And again, this is not taking into account the fact that it's going to probably take us like a year or more to build these ships, particularly the cruisers, because they're 30,000 tons. Look, I mean, look at this thing. It has a build points of 6,256.8 for the light cruiser, 8,464 for the heavy cruiser. Compare that to our carrier. Current version is only 5,000. These things literally have more build points than our current cruisers do. They're about in line with what the next-gen cruiser was supposed to look like. Which I may do that refit, because it's a significant speed increase with 0 loss in fuel efficiency. Which is shocking, to say the least. And I don't know how I did that. I really do not. But somehow I managed to do that. Effectively almost doubling our speed with 0 loss in fuel efficiency. I'll take it, because it's great, and I love it. But I don't know how it happened. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and rename this. This is going to be the 2155. You got to research your next generation missile fire control. It is October right now. So I have free labs. I got free labs. Let's go ahead and research this. Get that done real quick. Rename you to the 2155, and you are good to go once that's researched as well. So you're going to be the 2155 as well. Did we get the new fighters out? I'm inclined to say yes, let's get the new fighters out. Yeah, we're going to go get the new fighters out, and we're going to get rid of the 10 centimeter version because we're not using it. We are going to use the 2-engine version. I'll name it between parts. Strike fighters, we're going to do those as well, I think. And by I think, I mean we are definitely doing these as well. Why is there a difference in your size? Oh yes, because you're the 6. Now you're the 4. Size 6 is size 6. Okay, yeah. Shoot. we're not going to upgrade the engine or the missile launchers. We're not going to increase their size right now. We're going to stick with the current size 4s for this iteration. I think you're actually technically a bit slower. Fortunately, I don't... Oh, no, I do. No, you should be the same size, or the same speed, roughly. Don't know why you're slower. But it's not by enough that I really care. Ah, damn. But I can't increase your deployment time at all. Oh, well, that's not too big of a deal, of course. And again, I will rename these after the fact. The rescue shuttles really don't need sensors, because life pods are always detected. Because I guess, we can say that they put out on a public frequency that everybody can detect. At least when it comes to our At least when it comes to our guys. I guess that's the case. $200 tons, ludicrously fast. Sounds about right. You don't need a deployment time more than 6 days. You also technically don't have the fuel for a 6-day deployment time, which is fine, because you don't need it. You have absolutely zero reason to be out for 6 days. And I realize this is referred to as the R2, and we never actually technically got the R1 out, but that's, we're going to ignore that fact. And we're calling them the R2s. And yeah, the recon fighter is going to be getting this version just because simplicity of the same engine being utilized across the board. You don't need thermal sensors for one. If I were to actually use you, you have zero use for thermal sensors. God, that is such a stupid increase in fuel efficiency. You go from 7 days to 32 days. And that is with less total fuel capacity. Not that I'm using these, but you know what? They're not necessarily the worst thing ever, all things considered. I might put one on our future carrier. Maybe not one, probably two, so I have a bit of redundancy if one gets destroyed. But they might be helpful. I just need to make sure they're using the good. Yes, they're using the resolution 14 ones, which are the good ones, and they got quite a bit of range. I could give them a special one, technically speaking. I could give them a special one. Because they got the spare tonnage. What do I got? So the current one here is a size, there's a 50 ton. And I got 51. Well, let's just remove it. I'm going to say I want you to be 400 tons. In which case you have 104 tons to play with. So in that case, a sensor size of 2 could get you up to 65 million kilometers range on a 700-ton object. But the thing is, I don't know if we could do that because of the extra crew required. It's an extra 2 crew, which might take you over 400. And I don't want to go over 400. But let's just see. Takes you over by 2. Fine, because then I can just remove the 2 fighter fuel tanks. Doesn't really affect anything, and you still get significantly more range. I'm inclined to say if I were to actually build these early warning craft, which aren't really early warning crafts, they are realistically supposed to be AWACS, effectively. Not realistically early warning in the sense that the game may mean. In this case, your job is to detect enemy craft further out than our ships can actually do it. And be small, nimble, and all of that, and be able to fly up to a planet, detect ships, stations, all of that jazz from far enough back that our ships are safe from the enemy. And the enemy, depending on their tech, may not detect you. I'm thinking we're going to go with this one. So we're going to give me a company name. Changhan. Warning and control. These are the ANSPYs. This is the 6514. Yeah, I like this. I like that very much. Also, I need to clear out our active sensors. That's obsolete. That's obsolete. That's obsolete. Kim and Tang? I don't think we're using Kim and Tang. Are we using Kim and Tang? No, we're using Alfonso Barbito. Why do I have Kim and Tang? I don't know. I apparently designed them. The same situation as what happened with the EM sensors. I apparently designed one and then designed a second one because I didn't realize I had designed one already. It's always a wonderful thing to have happen. And these Shiyama can also be obsoleted because we're not going to be using them. And make sure that you guys are all using the correct ones. You are wonderful. You're not using the other ones that might have been the first ones designed, but then I designed the Alfonsos, and so we're gonna stick with the Alfonsos because at the very least those are the second ones I guess I designed, and they're the ones that I have equipped on everything, so it's easier to just stick with those, I guess. Yeah, much easier to just stick with those. Still trying to finalize when it comes to the Africa, but again, I want to get that out at some point. Yes, delete that one, rename. That goes there. Oh yes, the assault carrier is. I think we're gonna go with the 15,000. Excuse me. I think we're gonna go with the 15,000 kilometer a second one with the 4 days. So I feel like this requires you. This I think requires the carrier to potentially get just a little too close for comfort, even though you are stupidly fast. Like we're talking almost missile fast at this point for that stuff. When it comes to the assault shuttles, I have no problem with them being stupidly fast because the faster they are, the less time the enemy has to attempt to engage them with their weapons, assuming that the enemy has weapons still available. I guess we'll have to test if we want to actually try to board one of the enemy ships in GL Virginis, because the reality is, I don't think they got tech that's worth it. So it's mostly just to be able to say we did it, I think. Maybe I think we'll bring the assault carrier along just to have it, and if it manages to prove an opportunity, we'll take advantage of it, I guess. But yeah, I don't think we're going to be going in there with the intention of capturing an enemy ship. But if we can do it, bring it back as like a war prize or something, sure. Why not? God damn, our buoy deployment craft, the next iteration of it, assuming I actually get it out, which I really should, so I can show off the buoys. Yeah, it's almost as fast as a fighter. It is almost as fast as a fighter. But it's such an odd number on size. We're gonna go ahead and I think try to get you to 5,000. Or 4,500 actually, I think works nicely as well. I think we'll fill the rest with just fuel tanks because those don't require a crew. There we go. And it gets you a couple extra days. Not that you need the extra couple days, but whatever. Okay. So that was my timer that went off earlier. That was the bzz bzz that you heard. Well, assuming it was picked up by the microphone. If it wasn't, then I seem crazy, I guess. But yeah, so that's gonna be it for this part. I will see you all next time where we will finally should be finalizing our designs and be able to maybe start the construction process and figure out how long it's going to take. It's going to be a while. Actually, wait. I did say that we were going to say screw it and design the beam fire control, and I don't think we actually designed the beam fire control. Let's do that real quick. So 4 times range, so that we have the little bit of extra buffer for the enemy's ECM, even though, again, we have much better ECCM. And then we kick the tracking speed up to the maximum, 25,000 for this iteration. And it's going to be the Patty Electronics. I will rename it between parts, assuming I remember. So go to our light cruiser and the heavy cruiser prototype beam fire control. Slap the patty on there. Screw it, I'll rename it now. It's not that big of a deal. Just don't know how the hell the H got in there. It's going to be the 480250000. So that moves you from a tracking speed that's theoretically maxes out at the 20. You know, the interesting thing is that you're listing your tracking speed still at 33, which I don't know why that is. Because I could have sworn that's not how it works. But maybe turrets track independently of the tracking speed of the beam fire control. Again, I don't know the quirks of this game entirely, so I could certainly be wrong, and maybe I am on that. Either way, theoretically, we should be pretty damn accurate still. Because this is range bands at 10,000. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100,000. Not that we can actually fire at that. We have a... Well, actually, we can, in the case of the heavy cruiser, at least. Theoretically, we're pretty damn accurate. Light cruiser... Theoretically, your max range should be 40, which would come out to 69 here. On a target speed of 33,000. Oh, here we go. So 1111, which I think is basically, I don't know. Would that be, is that indicating that you can do that? Or is this damage band? This might be damage bands. I think this might be damage bands. Yeah, that would make the most sense if this was damage bands. This would be accuracy. This is damage, I believe. That would make the most sense. Because I'm pretty sure that those lasers do 6 damage. Yes, damage output of 6. Yeah, so the difference between lasers and railguns is that railguns don't necessarily drop off as much, as evidenced here. The max damage of 3 goes out quite a bit further. So theoretically, lasers do more damage, but I think lasers also get penalized more by armor and shields compared to railguns. So you get much longer range and theoretically more damage for a similar sized weapon system using lasers over railguns, but I think railguns technically work better when dealing with armor. Like, they just punch through it better, I believe. Because I know, you know, with the Masons, or the Messons, whatever, how the hell it's pronounced, they've got the whole armor retardation here for, the percentage of the shots stopped by each layer of armor. The higher you go, I said the better your tech goes, the less armor stops them. But yeah, nonetheless, we've as far as we're concerned, our designs are finalized. We just need to finish the research to get it all done. We will have refits after the operation into GL Virginis, where we will be putting on the actually good beam fire controls, hopefully. Because, yeah, the current one, I don't think is the greatest. But it'll work for now. Because there's not going to be very many missiles that come through. At least there shouldn't be in a properly working system. And according to my previous tests, that should be the case unless the enemy has significantly improved their missiles. Which is a possibility, because it has been, I believe, like 2-3 years or so. I don't recall who was in charge of the ship. See if we can figure that out. Astoria. It was presumably a lieutenant. Well, let's actually see. Diplomatic ship. Who do you consider in charge? Oh, you actually say captain. I'm shocked by that. Because I don't see a captain. In fact, I see honorable discharges listed for everybody. Are we just not gonna list them because we don't know if they're dead or not? I feel like you should probably have an MIA category if that's the scenario. Okay, we do list killed in an accident, so presumably we will list killed in action as well. Yeah, okay, sure game. I'll believe you when you say that. I will definitely believe you when you say that we apparently don't have the person who was in charge of the ship listed on here at all. Because I guess we just don't list missing in action. If I go to my captains here, will one of them say missing in action or something? Because I'm going to assume no. No. So our diplomatic ship is supposed to have a captain and somebody who's, good at diplomacy, theoretically. But we don't list the person who was in charge at all. Right, game. Right. I realize it might be a bit of a pain to keep track of missing in action characters, but I feel like they should be listed somewhere. And I would probably put them under the retired/dead if we don't rescue them from the pod or from the life pods ourselves. They should basically just be treated as dead, and you put their status as MIA. Just like we have killed in accident, honorable discharge, retired due to medical conditions, yada, yada, yada. If they survive and are on the life pods, but we don't rescue the life pods, we should list them as just MIA and put them under that category. And you can treat it, as far as you're concerned, as if they're dead, which is what I would do. I would treat them as if they're dead. You're not going to find them again. You're not going to magically rescue them when you invade a colony or something. But at least have the status somewhere so that I can find it. Because I don't know who the hell it was that was in charge off the top of my head. of the diplomatic ship. I'll have to look back through the previous videos and see if I can find it, and that's assuming I can even bother to actually do that, because I'll be honest, I'm lazy as all hell. So I probably won't do that, because something I would love to do would be to name one of our ships that are going to be built after the commander of the diplomatic ship. Well, the captain, technically, because apparently the rank is captain. But yeah, apparently that's not going to be the case. I will see you all next time. Quick reminder, if you want to stay up to date with the channel, my go-to place for posting channel updates is my Discord server. You can find a link that down below in the description. If you want to support the channel financially, there are two major ways to do that, either Patreon or Streamlabs, depending upon which method you would prefer to use. Streamlabs is more so intended for one-offs, but they do technically support. They added an option a while back now, I think about a year and a half maybe now, to be able to support at a monthly basis. But the reality is, if you want to support on a monthly basis, I would recommend going Patreon so that you can get the goodies that Patreon entails, namely being early access to videos. I'll admit I haven't done a great job of updating my Patreon. That's largely because I don't have any, so it's sort of I don't visit it that often. If I had patrons, however, I would, visit it more often and actually manage it. But because I don't have any, it's one of those cases of I only got so much time in the day, and going to the Patreon and putting in the posts just ain't worth it for me. Yeah, and the reality is I'd probably mostly advise that if you do support the channel via Patreon, join the Discord server, and I'll just sort of post the links into a chat that is Patreon only. Realistically, that's probably how I would do it. I probably wouldn't really update the Patreon itself. I'm just far too lazy to do it. Again, there used to be an option in Patreon way back in the day for it to import videos off of your YouTube channel. Like, you could literally link your YouTube channel and it could pull videos and make the posts for them. But then they did away with that. And it just kind of became a pain in the ass for me to continue managing Patreon, because there was just no easy way to import videos to make the post. I need to have multiple tabs open, copy links, put in all of it. It's like, oh God, I can't be bothered to do that. Again, I'm far too fucking lazy to deal with that shit, so I don't. I will see you all next time, like I said. Hopefully, over the next part, we will be getting the rebuild, or not the rebuild, but the build process done on this next generation. It's probably going to be a couple of parts, realistically, because I fully expect, particularly the heavy cruiser and the light cruiser, to take like a year, maybe even 2 potentially, to build. Because it is just, they are expensive in terms of build points. I don't even think necessarily in terms of minerals. They're expensive in terms of build points, because they just got so much tech on them, and they don't get to benefit from being just, oh, we're swapping out the sensors of refits. It's a full-on build from scratch. Those things take a while, as evidenced by when we were trying to build our escort destroyers. Those things took ages to build, and we were building them 3 at a time. So yeah, I'll see you all next time. Glory to the Republic, and until then, goodbye and farewell.